Welcome to Technology Weekly. Let's start with a couple of stories for our embarrassing technology feature.
Amber, Vicky and Ryan were on holiday in Thailand. They'd hired a car, and at the car hire, they'd been given a GPS and a map. They headed off to visit some secluded beaches. They were being guided by the GPS, and it all seemed to be going well. As they got closer to the coast, they were directed down a narrow path which took them right onto the beach, where they got stuck in the mud. There was a map in the car that should have been used, but it was too late now. They tried to push the car out of the mud, but the car couldn't be moved. The tide was rising, and in the end, they were forced to abandon the car. As they watched the car being surrounded by seawater, people on a tourist boat could be seen taking photos of the unfortunate incident. The three friends were given a lift back to the car hire. They had to pay a lot of money, but they felt lucky. They might have been stuck in the car when the tide came in. A GPS can be useful, but it needs to be used with care.
Philip was feeling nervous. It wasn't the first time he'd had a job interview, but this time he'd been made to conduct the interview online because he was being interviewed by a panel of interviewers in Hong Kong. Due to the time difference, the interview was arranged for 7 o'clock in the morning. Philip hated being woken up early, so he ignored his alarm clock and overslept. When he finally got up, he only had 5 minutes to get dressed. He'd been told that appearances were important in this company, so he put on a nice shirt and tie. But as he knew he couldn't be seen from the waist down, he kept his pyjama bottoms on. The interview started well, and he was halfway through when the postman arrived with a parcel. He saw Philip through the window and knocked on the glass. Philip tried to wave him away, but the postman continued to knock on the window. Philip excused himself and stood up, forgetting that he was being watched by the interviewers, and gave everyone a good view of his pyjama bottoms.
That's all for today in Technology Weekly. Watch us next week at 5 p.m.
Hello. In today's lesson, we'll talk about advanced passive forms. Let's start with verbs that take two objects. For example, give somebody something. We gave them, the direct object, a GPS, the indirect object. A GPS was given to them. They were given a GPS. As you can see, either a GPS or they can become the subject of the sentence in the passive, depending on what you want to emphasize. Now let's look at the verb forms after modal verbs. It's quite simple. Follow the modal verb with be and the past participle. They couldn't move the car. The car couldn't be moved. But it's a bit more tricky with past modals. You need to use have been and the past participle. They should have used the map. There was a map in the car that should have been used. Here are some more examples. Philip couldn't be seen from the waist down. People on a tourist boat could be seen taking photos. They might have been stuck in the car when the tide came in. Now let's talk about verbs followed by the to infinitive. For example, need. You need to use a GPS with care. What happens if you want to use the passive in this sentence? You use the passive infinitive, that is, to be, plus the past participle. A GPS needs to be used with care. And what about verbs followed by the ing form, such as hate, love, enjoy, be tired of? With these verbs, you use being plus the past participle. Look at the active and passive example. Philip hated waking up early. Philip hated being woken up early. And finally, look at the passive form of the verb make. My mum made me wear the best suit. I was made to wear the best suit. And that's all for today. Thank you.